Thank you, Janice. And good morning, Unity of Roanoke Valley, and good morning to all the people who are watching us online. I still feel really pumped up from the music on the mountain that was here Friday. Oh, yeah, I see people. Yes, it was wonderful. There were rock and roll bands, Greek food truck, people out in the Rose Garden relaxing and enjoying. It was so wonderful. Brought new people in here. It's going to be happening every month. I walked in. I was wearing blue jeans and a T-shirt, and a congregant, true story, congregant walks up to me and says, "Gosh, you look like a normal human being and not like a minister." But I'd like to say a special thanks and blessing to Cody for all that Cody has done and made that possible. We love you, we bless you, we appreciate you, and we behold the Christ in you. Today is also somewhat of a bittersweet day for our family. After service, I'm driving my daughter Rachel off to college. She's going to the University of Massachusetts. I'm very proud and very glad, but also, feeling very sad. And I've joked with her about her going to school above the Arctic Circle. And my 7-year-old Therese really believed that, and so she wanted to get boots and for her to go up. Why don't we start off by blessing the Christ candle and say that wonderful, powerful unity affirmation. There is only one presence and one power in the universe and in our lives, God, the good, omnipotent. We've been on that series about Jane Goodall and her wonderful book of hope. We'll conclude it today, where Jane talks about being a messenger of hope. And sometimes we may feel, well, what difference can I make? I'm too small, I'm too this. I saw a wonderful quote this week from the Dalai Lama. The Dalai Lama said, if you ever think that you are too small to have an influence, go sleep with a mosquito. And I think what Jane is talking, when we get to this, about the power of being a messenger of hope. When we can feel that, and when we can radiate that, when we can start passing that on, we don't have to be big evangelists or anything else, in our own small way, then we can start really feeling that one presence and one power, God, the good, omnipotent, and know that it's more than mumble words, that it really honestly is true. And it can put a new stride in our step, a new confidence, courage to face what needs to be done. As Jesus said, with God, all things are possible. Or as Paul said, all things work for good to those that know and love God. And that is true. One presence, one power, God, the good, omnipotent. It's more than mumble words. It really, honestly, truly is true. We're going to have a wonderful service, and a key part of it is going to be music, so let me turn it over to Janice.
Thank you, Reverend Rick. And I'm so happy to be here singing with you today. Would you stand, please, and join with us in singing Pour Yourself in Me.
Pour your joy in me. Thank you, Janice, for that heartfelt and beautiful, uplifting music and all the great singing from each and every one of us. Good morning. My name is Rhonda Banner, and it's an honor and a pleasure to be your platform assistant this morning. Would you all kindly join me in our vision and mission statement? Together, centered in God, we embrace a world of love, peace, and abundance for all. And our mission statement, to inspire positive change in our spiritual lives and in the world. And I will now turn it back over to Janice to introduce our incredible music today.
Okay, great. Thank you, Rhonda. We've got Bill Stanton here today. He's been through some interesting summer challenges, and so we're especially glad to see him back today. And as Bill makes his way up to the stage, he's going to get himself situated and tell us a little bit about what he's going to sing today. And by the way, you can find Bill on YouTube, so he's got some great videos. Do check it out, if you will. Bill, what are you going to sing for us?
Good morning. How are you? Yeah. I had to cancel out a couple of times. This year's been a rough year. Had some hiatal hernia surgery, and a couple of weeks ago I woke up one morning and couldn't get out of bed because of vertigo. I sat up in bed and then sort of passed out, and then got up again and passed out, and Debbie called the EMTs and they put me on a gurney and took me to the hospital for 12 days. And we did some physical therapy, and everything's fine. They tested me on every level you could possibly test anybody on. And that's fine. But the voice is a little weak, and the guitar playing is a little shabby because I just haven't been able to play much. So, luckily, I have choruses in all my songs. So if you get into this first song, the words and everything in the melody, please give me a boost, okay? That would be nice. It's called Feel the Love, and I want you to feel it. I want you to really feel this one. Well, miracles are natural. My brother said to me, you were created to create, and that's what sets you free. Honor your persistence, set the summer to the spring. Soon you'll see the beauty, every living thing. Yet it really isn't hard, this path for you and me. It's just so very different as we begin to see and feel the love. Well, miracles are your birthright, my brother said to me. And birthing can be difficult if it happens naturally. The caterpillar's clueless as it becomes a butterfly. And clouds don't need permission to beautify the sky. Here it comes, and it really isn't hard, this path for you and me. It's just so very different as we begin to see and feel the love. Well, miracles are perceptions, my brother said to me. When you perceive through loving eyes, you'll see reality. And when you listen from that place that comes from deep within, you'll hear the lovely gentle voice remind you of heaven. Here it goes. Really isn't hard, this path for you and me. It's just so very different when we begin to see and feel the love and feel the love.
Billy, thank you so much for having each of us feel your love and feel the love within ourselves and each other. Billy comes from New Jersey, and his wife, Debbie, his beautiful wife, as do I. You may not have heard his New Jersey accent, but you probably could surely hear my New Jersey accent. So at this moment, I would love to introduce our beautiful Martha Perez for our daily word.
Thank you, Rhonda. Good morning, everyone. The word for today is purpose. I pursue my purpose with passion. Over the course of my life, I have discovered what has kindled my passions, captivated my attention, and made me feel most alive. My passions lead me to discover my purpose, to which I choose to devote my time and my life. My highest spiritual purpose is to live from my divine nature. My divine gifts of life, love, and wisdom express uniquely through my passions, fulfilling me while demonstrating the truth of my being. I listened to the still small voice of spirit within to discern the best way to fulfill my purpose. I heed its call to learn, discover, and grow. It is never too late or too early to embark upon the journey of a lifetime. I am ready, willing, and more than able. And from John 18, verse 37, for this I was born, and for this I came into the world, to testify to the truth.
Thank you, Martha, for that beautiful reading. And at this time, I would like to invite up our talented and lovely Margie Ratliff for the prayer, for our healing prayer. And a prayer chaplain is available for 20 minutes after the service to pray for you or to pray for another. And that is done in the prayer chapel to your immediate left, right down the hallway. Another member of the spiritual care team, our compassionate Pat Raymore, is sitting in the back of the room, and she serves as the keeper of the flame. This person sits in a meditative state throughout the service, holding sacred space of love and peace for our beautiful community and beyond. If you have a prayer request that you would like to leave in the prayer box today, a prayer box is here, or there's one also in the back, along with prayer request forms. And these requests are sent to our spiritual care team and also to Silent Unity in Kansas, Missouri, and they're held there in prayer for the next 30 days.
Let us become become centered. Close your eyes if you wish. Just relax. We know that we are here by divine appointment, each and every one of us in this moment. Our purpose in this world is to know our oneness with the divine. We learn all throughout our lives, just along the way, to let go of our own agendas, our own desired outcomes, and place them in Spirit's hands. Spirit works with us and through us with the purpose of extending the love that was placed there by our Creator. We bring to mind, and if you wish to whisper their names, you may include your own, for a prayer of wholeness, a prayer of light, a prayer of healing that is beyond what we really know. The healing is in the mind and the heart. So whatever it is that we may be experiencing in our body, yes, we acknowledge that it is something for us to learn, an incredible lesson or message, whatever it is that we need to bring to love for ourselves, for each other, for our community, this beloved community, so supportive of each other. And in prayer is the time that we come to this place to connect with God, to connect with love. The loving presence is always within and around us. We are so grateful. So blessings to all of these in our prayer box and in our hearts. And so it is. Amen.
Thank
you,
you,
Margie.
Margie, for that beautiful prayer for us and beyond us.
Thank you, Margie. We'd like to take a deep breath where you are and prepare for meditation, thanking our prayer chaplains for their service today.
I pray, I feel my heart go deeper into my God. Let's take a deep breath in. And slowly let it out. Let's take another deep breath in. And slowly let it out. Let's close our eyes if we feel comfortable doing so. We're just approaching the beginning of a change in season. Several mornings when you've gone out early, there's been even a nip in the air. And the first signs of moving from the growing season into the harvest season. I'd ask you to remember a time when you started, maybe it was just recently, realizing we are moving from the growing season into the harvest season. A time where you first saw some of the leaves turning. Or the first harvest festivals started appearing. Or maybe that harvest was a project that you got done. And you thought, my God, I'll never get this done, but you got it done. You saw it through. That sense of completeness, of prosperity, of abundance. Feeling a job well done, despite it all, and because of it all. And it's so easy to feel this in our beautiful part of the world as we move from the growing season into the harvest season. As Karen Drucker said, we are so blessed. We're so grateful for all that we have. And with this feeling of harvest, of abundance, of peace within and joy, we gladly go into the silence. Dear Spirit, dear Mother, Father, God, thank you for this harvest season which is coming up. Thank you for our many blessings. And where there are challenges in our lives, help us to see them as opportunities for more spiritual growth. And as Mary Ann Lunsford used to say, think of frogs and think of the acronym of frogs. Fully rely on God. Fully rely on God. Thank you for all this. And so we say amen and amen. Gosh, I was so taken by Bill's song. I mean, I think he hit the nail on the head. I mean, a rough year. I mean, told about what he had gone through. Many of you I know have gone through personal trials, but you look, pandemics coming back, monkeypox, next thing you know, political polarization and this and that and the other thing. But what was his answer is then said, feel the love. Feel the love. I almost felt like saying, that's it. Service is over. Let's move on to fellowship. Let's move on to fellowship. I mean, but that's it. And this is why I think this book by Jane Goodall, which we've been looking at, is so important, because a lot of times the answer to saying, oh, it's been a really horrible year, and is not feel the love or turn to spiritual principles. It's more like, the world's going to hell in a handbasket, and there's nothing you can do about it, and ain't it awful, ain't it horrible? And that's why I have felt this book by Jane Goodall and Doug Abrams, is so important, has such an important message for us, and that the answer is not to fall into this rabbit hole of despair, and it's very easy to do that. I mean, I was waiting to pick up my daughter, and I have Sirius XM, so I put on, it was one of the news stations, and so, in comes, it was one of the cycles. It's almost enough to say, anything else but, feel the love, and to get out of that, mental state. And that's why I think Jane is so important, what she is saying about hope. And to start off today, because we're talking about messengers of hope, if we could go to the first slide, there we are. That is Bill Wilson. Many people know him as Bill W. Bill W. was the co-founder with Dr. Bob of Alcoholics Anonymous. And Bill after AA was founded and a lot of people started experiencing recovery from alcoholism and were sane and sober and got on a spiritual path, Bill would travel around the country and also travel around the world. And it was not unusual for people to come up to Bill, and say, gosh, before I read what you wrote and all that, and before I started going to, AA meetings and all that, the doctor had told me, I have cirrhosis of the liver, I'm going to become a wet brain in 1 more year, and I, probably am not going to live more than 2-3 years. You really saved my life. I can't tell you, how grateful I am for what you did and all that. And the response Bill would give to when people did that, he would look at them and he would say, thanks so much, pass it on. Thanks so much, pass it on. As a matter of fact, one of the biographies of Bill Wilson is that very title, Pass It On, Pass It On. And I think Jane Goodall would say, that's it. That's really what I'm talking about. That Jane would say that, it's not enough for us on a personal, individual level to regain the sense of hope. That's great. I mean, that's great getting out of, negativity and cynicism and, nothing can be done and all that. It's good to get out of that, but it's important not just to have this be an individual, Lone Ranger type of thing. Jane felt very much and feels very much that it is so important for us to be messengers of hope. Messengers of hope. To, as Bill W. would say, pass it on. Pass it on. And the pass it on, you don't have to become, a televangelist or, a walking billboard or obnoxious about it. There are a lot of positive ways of doing it. And sometimes our small ways of doing it make such a bigger impression than being a televangelist or being a walking billboard. The way this book was put together, and remember, Doug was the co-author with the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu in the Book of Joy, which we did. So the plan was to do it this way. They were going to have 3 sessions where they spent a lot of time together. The first was in Tanzania, which Jane has a home there. This is where she did her work with chimpanzees and monkeys in Africa. The second was going to be a series spending time together in a forest in the Netherlands, and they did both of those sessions. Then came the pandemic. So what do you do about it? And Jane said, we got to get this book out. I mean, this book is more timely now after going through the pandemic than before when we started. Okie dokie, so how are we going to do it? Well, let's do it on Zoom. I mean, or let's do it FaceTime or something. So they did it that way. The third session they were supposed to do, they were going to visit Jane's, Doug was going to come visit and stay in Jane's childhood home, which it's still a family home, and she still lives there. They still own it in Bournemouth, England, near the seaside. So they're doing it because Jane felt it was really important, to give a feel of her childhood and how she, things that were important to her. So they're in England, and Jane's taking her laptop and showing it around. Said, all right, Doug, let's go in this. This is a picture of Rusty. Rusty was my dog back then. And believe me, I didn't need to go to Cambridge to learn that animals have personalities. Rusty really had a personality. Then let's go out the front door. This is the tree I climbed up, and I would read Tarzan books and Dr. Dolittle books, and I really got this love of working. I wanted to dream of working with animals and all that. And then she would show her study. This is a stone. It's a piece of the Berlin Wall. One of my colleagues got a chip of the Berlin Wall, and I was very fortunate too. I was headed up research for a think tank in Washington, and we had a researcher in Berlin when the wall came down. She got me a chip of the Berlin Wall, and it's on our family altar, and I have Buddha contemplating. It's a little statue of Buddha contemplating this chip from the Berlin Wall. which is so important because, I thought for many years, once, once the communists took, say whatever you want about them, but once they took an inch of land, you could forget about ever getting it back again. And that's what I honestly thought. And yet, here comes the birth, almost like Joshua and the wall of Jericho, came tumbling down. Came tumbling down. That's something which I thought would never happened. And she goes over here, shows Doug. This is a piece of stone. It's from the quarry from Nelson Mandela's. When Nelson Mandela was locked up, he was locked up on Robben Island. They had him go out and quarry stone. And so here's a stone from, Nelson Mandela. And here's a California condor feather. The California condor was seen as almost extinct, and it's now a species which is coming back. And so Doug said to Jane, well, why do you think it's important to be a messenger of hope? And Jane said, well, quite frankly, Doug, if it wasn't for these messengers of hope, I never would have pursued what, I had this dream about working with animals and studying animals, but I never, I was a little girl in England. I never would have pursued, it was after the war, I never would have pursued it. But my mom, and this is why I say you don't have to be a televangelist, my mom encouraged me to follow through on my dream. And this was, back in the 50s, a woman, a girl going into Central Africa to study. My mom was the one who said, don't take any guff from them, do it. Don't take any guff from them, just do it. And then she said, another encourager, another messenger of hope to me was Louis Leakey. Her mentor, the great paleontologist and study of early fossils of human remains, and he was the one who encouraged me. And when I went into Central Africa and the monkeys kept running away from me, I couldn't get close enough. I thought eventually I could build up my trust with the monkeys, said Jane, but we were running out of money, and I didn't know whether I could build up the trust fast enough before the money ran out. And it was Louis who kept on saying to me, you can do it, you can do it. So she said, it's so important to be, to be an encourager. And she said, going back to my childhood, she said, I can't take you there, I'd lose Wi-Fi, but there's the beaches just down the road, and there were all these barbed wires on them, and because, oh my God, the Nazis are going to come and land on the beaches, and it could have happened. And she said, it was a very dark and bitter time, but we stood. And she writes, there could be no better example of this, because it was really bleak. Nobody thought we'd win. A lot of the outside world didn't think we'd win, but we stood firm. With the help of others, of course, we get by with a little help from our friends. But you know what? We confronted the Nazis, we stood up to them, and we won. And we won against all odds. We won. And then Doug said, well, wow, you certainly have been a messenger of hope. And it seems to be easy for you to do that. And Jane said, who, me? You've got to be kidding me. I'm a shy introvert. I was out in the middle of the wild studying monkeys. I wasn't in human social gatherings, as it were. And then she said, and I was a scientist, and I didn't, I tried to not look at these social issues and things like that. But then I was at this 1986 conference where we got together. I was studying chimpanzees, somebody else was studying apes, and we got together, and I knew this intellectually. I knew things were not going well for all these species. But when everybody started talking about what was going on in their neck of the woods, it really hit me. It really hit me. This environmental change, this climate change, and all, it's happening it's not 5 generations down the road. It is happening, and it is happening now. And I really felt that I had to stand and do something. But I was scared. I mean, I'm shy. who the heck is, going to listen to me? And and she said, Doug, I didn't sign up for this. It just overtook me and swept over me. And then she said, the chimps had given me so much. Now it was my turn to do something for them, and also something, for the world. She said that 1986 conference, she said it was sort of like St. Paul, going on the road to Damascus, and it just sort of happened. And then I started to talk, and I remember my early talks and my early books and stuff. I was really nervous. I mean, it's one thing to write a scientific paper. It's another thing to write something where you really want to influence a mass audience and things like. And she said, I was shocked to discover that people really listened to me, and they liked what I had to say. Remember, there was Robert Heinlein's book, Stranger in a Strange Land, and there was the term grok, when you really understand or feel simpatico. She said, I was amazed to see that people really started to grok with what I was saying. And she also said, we all have talents. I mean, both Jesus and Buddha and all the great masters talk about that all of us have talents, and that we are not to bury those talents. I told this story recently, but I think it honestly, truly bears repeating. There's a story about a great rabbi, Rabbi Susha. And Rabbi Susha was on his deathbed, and he's crying. And his students come up to him, and they say, Rabbi Susha, what's the matter? He said, because I realize that when I die, God is not going to ask me, why weren't you more like Moses? Why weren't you more like the prophet Muhammad? God's going to ask me, why weren't you more like Rabbi Susha? Why weren't you more like Rabbi Susha? We are not called to be another Jane Goodall. We're not called to be another Dr. Martin Luther King. We're called to be, in my case, Rick Belous. In your case, you are called to be you. We all have that divine spark within inside ourselves. In our small way, to let that divine spark flow. That talent flow. And it may seem like a small talent, but it could be so important. Jane's mom. If it wasn't for Jane's mom, Jane Goodall wouldn't have, she would have said, well, that's just a kid's dream or whatever, to have an encourager. There are other stories about that. Bill Wilson, when he had his vision, his spiritual vision, he was locked up in a drunk hospital, a hospital called Townsend's Hospital in New York, which had a war. It was the Nut Ward and Alcoholics War back in the 30s. And so they put the alcoholics with all the psychiatric cases and all that. And the doctors had said to his wife, Lois, that probably Bill had just a few more months to live. And Bill one night just felt really desperate and just said, if there is anything out there, help. And he felt just the power, what he called the bright winds of the Spirit. The early AAs were really sarcastic. They called them Billy's hot flashes. No respect, like Rodney Dangerfield, I don't get no respect. But so Bill had this, and he never drank again, really, that there was a spiritual way out of this. He went down and saw his doctor at the ward, Dr. Silkworth, who was a very early supporter of AA. And he said to Dr. Silkworth, this is what has happened to me, am I going crazy? Dr. Silkworth could have said to him, Bill, you're this close to DTs and dry heaves and all that. Yeah, that was crazy. If that had happened, somebody had said that, forget AA ever being founded. But Silkworth said, hold on to that, Bill. That's so beautiful. It is so much better than what you had 24 hours ago. That little encouragement led to a mighty movement. Islam, same story in Islam. When it's in the Hadith, when Muhammad went into the cave and he first heard the voice, and the voice said, recite, recite, he bolted out of that cave. And he went to his wife and he said, I'm going crazy. I think I might be going crazy. I'm hearing voices, and oh my God. His wife said to him, no, go back into the cave and listen. It might be God. I think it is God. If it wasn't for his wife's encouragement, he might have said, well, I'm just a camel driver. I'm a camel driver going crazy. So, and Islam wouldn't have happened. So sometimes the smallest, being a messenger of hope, it can be, doing those slight little things. So anyway, Doug asked, well, how did, you had all these fears. How did you overcome them? And Jane said, well, it's not a question of overcoming them. I don't think you really overcome them. But what I do is I step back and I open up to Spirit. And she says, when I'm feeling the most desperate, when I'm so tired, so completely exhausted that I feel I absolutely cannot give a lecture, I step back and open up to this force, this power which is greater than me. I sort of open up my mind to some kind of outside force, said Jane. I just relax and decide to appeal to the source of hidden strength, to the spiritual power that seems to have sent me on this mission. And in my mind I say, well, Spirit, you got me into this horrible situation, so I'm counting on you to get me through. And I get through. And so Doug says to her, so you empty your mind and somehow trust that whatever the spiritual power is, it will somehow get you through. Well, yeah, says Jane, it's something like that, but I see it more. It's almost like mind touching mind. Doesn't that sound very unity? Mind touching mind, divine mind coming in. And then Jane said, and I think this is so powerful, well, yes, sure, yeah, but there is a wisdom that's far, far greater than my own. I was so thrilled when I found that the great scientist, Albert Einstein, one of the most brilliant minds of the 20th century, came to the same conclusion based on pure science. He said it was a harmony of natural law. It's a wonderful quote. And then she gets up and says, it's in his book, The World as I See It. Where's that book? And she goes looking around, and Doug's sitting there, and finally Jane comes back and says, here it is. Here's the quote from Albert Einstein. The harmony of natural law reveals an intelligence of such superiority that compared with it, all systematic thinking and acting of human beings is an utterly insignificant reflection. When we can become messengers of hope, we are connected with that. Even if it's just a small sense of encouragement. The term CEO stands for Chief Executive Officer. I like to think CEO, the great CEOs are CEOs, Chief Encouragement Officers. And then Doug, it's very interesting. He said, well, don't you believe a lot of this is coincidence? And Jane says, no, quite frankly, I don't. There's something to the synchronicity stuff. And she tells of these stories in this book. I've told the story about that poisonous snake and the synchronicity so she told Doug, and this is just a wonderful story about, it's not just coincidence, not just random events. There really is something much deeper going on. So, for example, when we started up the Jane Goodall Institute, we started doing this, we started getting all these companies, corporations, which started to say, they were nuisance suits, but they were suits where they were suing us for a ton of money. They were saying we were spreading libel, we were spreading this, we were defaming the company by pointing out how they treat animals in testing and what they were doing to the deforestation and all that. So she said, I was supposed to fly to London to meet with people. How are we going to answer these charges? And she's thinking, if any of these won, we're sunk. We don't have the money. We don't even have the money to pay a lawyer. To do all this. And she's feeling desperate. She's supposed to fly from Nairobi. I think she's supposed to fly from, I don't know, Nairobi to London or something. And she gets delayed, she gets this, and she winds up in Johannesburg, of all places. I mean, it's sort of, but she winds up in Johannesburg. I think it was Johannesburg. And so anyway, she goes to the ticket counter. They said, well, yeah, there seems to be 2 empty seats on this flight. We can put you on one of them. So they put her on one of those empty seats. The next thing, this guy comes in and sits down at the opposite seat. And Jane says, usually shy Jane doesn't say anything. The man says, hello, how are you? And gosh, it's strange I'm on this flight because I was supposed to fly from Kenya to London and then, she says, well, same thing here. I was supposed to fly from Nairobi and here, wow, small world. We're, and 2 empty seats and here we are. And he looks at her, he says, wait a minute, you're Jane Goodall, aren't you? She said, well, yes, I'm Jane Goodall. And he says, well, why are you flying to London? She says, she tells him, I'm flying to London because, these lawsuits, and I don't know how, if we ever lose one of these suits, we're done, and I don't know how we're even going to pay for lawyers. And she tells him about this. And the man shakes her hand and says, well, let me introduce myself. My name is Karsten Schmidt, and I'm the chairman of Baker McKenzie. Baker McKenzie is one of the most powerful law firms and lobbying firms in Europe. And he says, I'd be honored to take on your cases pro bono, for free. And so Karsten took on the cases. These pharmaceutical nuisance suits just evaporated. Karsten came on Jane Goodall Institute board, and Jane said, do you think it was just coincidence that I wound up sitting next to Karsten? And what a difference that has made. Today's daily word is purpose. When we have that purpose to be messengers of hope, even in our small way, there is a new stride in our step. There is a new positivity. There is a new hope. There is a new joy. And we can expect a wonderful, wonderful season of harvest. At one of Jane's lectures, she was asked, well, somebody asked her, what is your next great adventure? And Jane looked up and said, well, I guess my next great adventure will be perhaps dying. And there were titters and nervousness in the audience. And then Jane looked and said, well, when you die, either there's nothing, and if there's nothing, or there is something, said Jane. And I happen to believe, said Jane, there is something. And if there is something, it's going to be a great adventure. And I look forward, said Jane, to preparing for that. She said at the end of the lecture, the woman who asked the question came up to her and said, gosh, I had never thought about, dying. I've had such fear about death and all that. And you really have put, such a new twist on it. So I think really all this boils down to just a few key points. First, get out of cynicism. Get out of negativity. Get out of negative prayer circles. Start living in the solution and stop living in the problem. Second, I believe Jane is so right. It's not enough to get a personal sense of hope and faith. That's great. That's important. But we need to become messengers of hope. We need to, as Bill Wilson would say, pass it on. Pass it on in our own small ways. Third, we all have talents. We all of us in this room, we all have talents, and we all have comfort zones. And the goal of life is to expand those comfort zones. And when we start to open up to this, Spirit comes in. It is mind-touching mind. There is a spiritual force that can take us beyond our wildest dreams. And fourth, the Rabbi Susha story, I think, is so important. God's not calling you to be the next Jane Goodall. God's calling you and me to be you and me, who we truly are. that divine spark, what we call that Christ within. One last Jane Goodall story as we finish. So Jane was in Tanzania, and she was at one of her Roots and Shoots. Remember we talked about Roots and Shoots, about kids, and this is like in 68 countries and growing, over hundreds of thousands of people, kids doing these projects and all this. So she's at one of the rallies in Tanzania, and the kids are saying, "Together we can, together we can, together we can." Jane got up and said, "That's great, together we can. But you know what? Together we will. Together we will." And the chant went up, "Together we can, together we will." And that's been the chant of so many Roots and Shoots around the world. Together we can, together we will. Together we can, together we will. Thank you, and God bless.
Love you, Rick. Well, the voice is shot, so, but that's okay. Because in the second song, there's, the chorus starts at the beginning. So get ready, just, to learn it. And it's all about creating your world. If we do create our world, why not create a beautiful world? Is that my decision to do that? So this is called In My World. This is the chorus. In my world, things work out. Good things are always going on. In my world. So what about the past? What do I recall? All the love that I gave, my kindness to all the joy that I gave, all that I received, all the other memories I gladly release. Here it is. In my world, things work out. Good things are always going on in my world. And what about the future? What about tomorrow? Place the future in the hands who knows no more of sorrow. Nothing's ever lost, it's ever in my mind. I rejoice at what I see, and love is all I find. In my world, good things are always going on in my world. So what about this moment? What about the now? The present is really all there is, all that time allows. As I go through my day, reach outside of time, find out just what I am, deep within my mind. In my world, things work out. Good things are always going on in my world. One more time. In my world, things work out. Good things are always going on in my world.
Thank you, Bill. Well, now, in our world, there does, Jim Rosemergy, that great Unity minister, wrote a book, as I mentioned every week, that even mystics have to pay bills. So we now come to the time of tithes, love offerings, and gifts. And if I could put a plug, Jim Rosemergy has just published another book, wonderful book called The Life of a Christian Heretic. It's his autobiography. I highly recommend it. We'd ask you to come up row by row. And I know many of you give online or give monthly or whatever. It doesn't matter. Come on up. Your positive vibrations are more than welcome. And please take an affirmation. We invite our online viewers to check the description box for ways to donate. Remember to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. And for you folks online, I try each week to randomly pick an affirmation for all of us online, as it were. And it's a good one. I am set free as I forgive. I am set free as I forgive. Let's say that wonderful blessing together. Divine love, flowing through me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I am open to receive. Thank you, Father, Mother, God. And so it is.
So it is time right now to affirm our abundance. So would you kindly join me in doing that? Unity of Roanoke Valley is abundantly blessed. Creative people are drawn to us. Divine ideas flow through us. Financial resources bless us. And we accomplish mighty works together. So we have some exciting and positive things happening in September. As we know, there are many positive things happening in the world. We have an opportunity, as Reverend Rick shared with us, to be a messenger of hope. As Billy shared with us, to feel the love and to create a beautiful world. So there are so many great things happening in September here at Unity. So strap on your seat because these are some exciting announcements. So firstly, Unity has a World Day of Prayer. We all have an opportunity to be a part of the World Day of Prayer, and heaven knows the world really can use prayer. So on September 7th, we invite you, that's a Wednesday evening at 7 p.m., to come here in the sanctuary for a prayer vigil service here, and we will also join at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Unity Village in Missouri, for their opening ceremony. So secondly, we have an anniversary coming up in September. Does anybody know whose anniversary it is? No, not mine, but thank you. It is the anniversary of Unity of Roanoke Valley. So we are 51 years old, and we are going to have an amazing celebration. And the way we're going to celebrate is with spaghetti. And it's not with, remember years ago, I'm dating myself, when they had those Franco-American SpaghettiOs, and the kid, I know I'm dating, we do not have the SpaghettiOs in the can. So we are having real Italiano pasta. And I also heard from a little birdie, we're going to have a couple of nice sauces, one vegan marinara, and maybe a nice meat bolognese. And I will make sure, if the restaurant doesn't include the Parmesan cheese, that I will make sure that we have the cheese. Because what is the pasta without the sauce and the cheese? We have many possibilities. So we invite each of you to please come to fill the bellies with really good food, to connect. For those of you that are at home, if we haven't seen you in a while, please come back. Welcome home. We miss you. We want to see you. And for anyone who has not been here to our beautiful Unity community, please come and join us on that date. So again, September 25th, 1 o'clock, for all the pasta that you could eat. It's only $10 as a suggested donation per individual and $15 per family. So we look forward to having you. And thirdly, have any of you ever wanted to deepen your spiritual experience and your prayer life, and to do it in a meaningful way? Well, we have the opportunity to get an overview of the spiritual program, the Prayer Chaplain program, on September 18th. We will have a meeting in the Prayer Chapel at 12:30 p.m. where you can get all of your questions answered. So if you've ever thought about being a prayer chaplain, praying with others, or learning how to pray affirmatively, deepening your prayer life, your spiritual life, you've got the opportunity. It is required to come that day, find out about it. You do not have to commit that day, but you do need to be there to find out. And also today we have the opportunity, one of our prayer chaplains will be in Fellowship Hall. So if any of you have that purpose, and as we said in our daily word, we want you to fulfill your purpose. So you have the opportunity to get all of your questions answered. And on a personal note, when I came here in 2012, I had always thought about being a prayer chaplain, but I was resisting going to school for 3 years and spending all that money. So I thought, maybe I could learn how to be a prayer chaplain and join the spiritual care team. So I decided to fulfill my purpose. I did do that, and I recall that whenever I called one of the members in our beautiful community to pray, I was a little bit nervous. But as I prayed with you, And when I got off the phone, I always felt so more joyful, so much more fulfilled, and so lighthearted that it was one of the most beautiful experiences. And I got to learn how to pray in a way that was very affirmative, very beautiful, and to do that in a meaningful way. So please take advantage of that opportunity today in the fellowship hall, meeting with one of our prayer chaplains, or come on the 18th to the prayer chapel to find out about that. So with all those great things happening in September that we are looking forward to your participation, I now would like to invite Reverend Rick up for an announcement.
Very quickly, spirit circles are small groups which meet in people's homes. We have one meeting in a library. The one I'm doing is both hybrid. It'll be both in my house and online. We are going to be looking at a wonderful new book that's been printed or published by Unity called Unity and World Religions. So we'll be looking at the religions of the world, looking at unity principles, gleanings of truth from world religions. It's going to be a wonderful, wonderful spirit circle, and we hope for you to sign up. There are sign-up sheets in the fellowship hall, and hope that many of you will. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Rick. And this week, our liaison from the Board of Directors is Pat Eby. Pat, are you here? So Pat Eby is right there. So if anybody has any questions, concerns, suggestions for the Board of Directors, please see Pat Eby in the back today. And so it's now time for our youth to join us. If you brought a child with you today, we invite you to come up, greet, and meet them.
We
So nice to see everyone. We're all shining our light. Woohoo! Nevaeh is going to share a little something about what we did today. And could everyone who brought their collages in hold them up high so our friends in Big Church can see what we've done? And so Nevaeh, you want to share a little bit about what's in your collage?
Well, mainly food, but
It looks like a lot of dessert.
yeah,
But what does the affirmation say?
my ability to love is limitless.
Amen, sister. Amen. So we were discussing happiness, and the question we asked is, where does happiness come from? So guys, where does happiness come from? From within. Amen. So I just wanted to announce that next Sunday we'll go back to our regular classes. Our summer of exploration, this was our last Sunday, and next Sunday we will have our 5th grade and younger in their regular classes. The week after that, September 11th, we'll start all classes, including our teen club, which will begin September 11th and continue each Sunday thereafter. So hooray for our teens returning, yay, and everyone else. So what a great summer. Thanks, everyone, for participating.
because it's been a wonderful summer of exploration. Can we say to Jane and to all the volunteers a very special blessing? We love you, we bless you, we appreciate you, and we behold the Christ in you.
We love you, we love you.
The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is. And because God is, all is well. And Spirit says, pass it on. And all the people said, Amen.